Arena Universe Citizen presents New Era Religion, Episode 98, Part 1, August 17, 2022. Consciously Systemizing. Interpersonal communications are continuous. Typically, interpersonal relationships in the human condition are too complicated to expect anything different to result in a reasonable amount of time from the reenacting behavior that exemplifies emulations and conformity. The exemplifications of emulations and conformity in this case are in regards to aspects of the PRJWBCS: politics, religion, justice, war, belief, complex schemes. Such conformity, in any event, is not only meaningless, but was irrationally contrived hundreds of years ago. Conformity can be a meaningless experience to the most intimidating degree when imposed as a self-fulfilling obligation to the PRJWBCS, which inevitably is at the expense of self or the other. Obligations to the imposition over time can become the expected norm based on irrationally contrived rules and laws that were devised prior to knowing that observation of otherness conceptually initiates human awareness. Otherness in total is the environment, which includes self and others living in the human condition. The living human condition occurs as the individual human entity is alive on planet Earth with approximately 8 billion human entities. All of those observations of otherness conceptually initiate human awareness, the mind of which can be more or less interested in discovering the most economical way that systems behave relative to unity and self in universe. If most of the people, all of whom are designed by the eternal omniscient mind, Yom, as individuals among populations of individuals, are not aware of this essential self-identity awareness while adapting to the manifest forms of established rules and laws, tenets, and doctrine that were, and continue to be, specifically devised for controlling human behavior, we can wonder what may have been omitted in that process. Could the PRJWBCS innovations for controlling human behavior correlate to survival but not systemizing and factoring in its own obsolescence as an overlooked essential conceptioning? Unawareness of systemizing continues as matters of great concern grow increasingly more destructive, while the slave mentality conditioning continues unabated everywhere, as yet to be identified irrational coexistence to the most despicably articulated degree. This is despite evolution technologies and science that in generalized principle logically is designed for the most omnirational discernment and maximum economy applications for self-other validations as humanity enjoys freedom. But overall, we are not experiencing individualized freedoms and the integrity derived therefrom. Systemizing, as we can learn more about it in Synergetics 1006.14, may be essential for the enjoyment of the individualized freedom as systems of universe that more obviously require obsoleting the obsoletable as an essential economic function. Human awareness is involved in all cases anyway, but specifically when we are consciously aware of what is conceptually initiated is by special case systemizing. This means by differentiating local integrities from out of the total. The total reality of universal principles is also what humans can adjust the a priori thought to. It is the total, non-unitarily conceptualizable integrity of generalized universe. The human condition becomes increasingly irrational as variously motivated PRJWBCS induced impositions deny conscious evolution correlations to our individual systemic thought processes and metaphysical generalized conceptioning of the degrees of freedom. This happens inadvertently or directly whenever otherness imposing slave mentality is incorporated in its stead. The problem can make the slave mentality almost impossible to spontaneously eliminate throughout the interpersonal communications process, as the subconscious and ignorantly fearful cautionaries are set into motion, resetting the local interpersonal communications, adding more fear engendering along the way. Wherever and whenever humans do not yet recognize the inherently inviolable integrity of the individual and integral regenerative value of systemizing problematic scenarios, reset events on the world stage. Adhering to the manifest slave mentality and conforming to the manifest impositions become an endurance test for surviving the PRJWBCS, which are interwoven nuances of self-serving agendas and placating obligations. It is where chosen words like support are used to control freedom, while indoctrinating and obligating self and others to conform to a lifelong, falsely accredited principle or belief. Falsely, because its derivation is not from universe, but from the human imagination's ability to innovate whatever is momentarily used for survival, but was never intended as a permanent anti-evolution usurpation of consciousness evolution's awareness of metaphysical generalized conceptioning fields of thought. Lifelong obligatory commitment without identifying the potential debilitating relative interpersonal mental imbalances that is also underway just adds to the survival dilemma. The undesirable consequences are not logical choices between two alternatives, especially when the authoritative influence is well situated in powerfully wealthy, opinionated positions that also enlist the mainstream news media to propagate complementing propaganda. The wealth in those cases is monetary, not of the energy organized capability to support life. From our Buckminster Fuller Dictionary in quotes, wealth includes the accommodation of man's proclivities, degrees of freedom, and needs for information, end quote. Ironically, in this year 2022, the word man is under attack by those whose confusion about self-identity and pronoun use do not naturally associate what was accepted with a clear understanding that man is an abbreviation for human, not a specific gender that eliminates the opposite gender, there being only male and female, as one of the always and only coexisting complementarities that physics has found. We can observe installed in the wall a female electric receptacle for the male plug to fit into the outlet, never thinking to correct the pronoun in this instance or other obvious energy-related functions. Moreover, and according to Bucky Fuller's equation of intellect, in quotes, wealth is the measurable degree of established operative advantage locally organized by intellect over the locally occurring differentiable behaviors of universal energy, end quote. Such wealth, differentiated from monetary imposition and ever-increasing obligation, is irreversible advantage that cannot be expended in preferred reorganization of past events, because it can only be expended in organizing forward events. The forward events are correlative to preferential omni-rational ephemeralization patterns, not preferred belief doctrine. Ephemeralization is the design science strategy of doing ever more with ever less, dealing more with less. In other words, technically, ephemeralization is doing vastly more with vastly and invisibly less, such as, for example, returning the world's metallic scrap into complete reuse. It has everything to do with cycles. When preferred doctrine is used for controlling human behavior, it is also degradation of the individual's freedom and always involves the slave mentality and debilitates the individual's consciously coordinated conceptual freedom. To be continued in part 2. Thank you.